Coordinate plane ordered pairs. So in this video, we will see how do we locate a point in a coordinate or a Cartesian plane. Let us consider an example of a parking layout. Okay, now you have to park the car and you are told that park the car in slot number 5. Is it clearer to you where exact you have to park it? No. Why? Because you have got many parking slot 5. In this parking layout, there are 6 or rather 7 parking slot which are numbered 5. So this much information for parking is not enough. What do we need extra? We need some more information, and the second information that we need is the lane in which you have to park. So I say, okay, park in lane C. Now you are very clear that, okay, first I have to go to lane C. Once I reach lane C, I have to plot it, park it in the slot number 5. So this is your exact parking corresponding to these two conditions given. Fine. So we see that to locate an exact parking slot, just giving one information, that is the parking slot number, is not enough. We have to specify the lane in which this parking slot is. Okay. The same is the case in our coordinate plane also. Let us just draw it quickly. So we have our y-axis and we have the x-axis. Both of them are perpendicular to each other and they intersect each other at origin. Fine. These are the two number lines intersecting at origin, perpendicular to each other. Okay. Now, I have a point, say here, a point P, and I want to give the exact location of this point. So what do? I see, okay, how far the point is from the x-axis. So this is the distance of the point from the x-axis, and this is nothing but 3 units. And this is the distance of the point from the y-axis, and this is 2 units. If we mention these two distances, then we will be able to locate this point P specifically on this coordinate plane. Okay, so to locate any point, what all do we need? We need, number 1, its distance from y-axis, and the second thing needed is its distance from x-axis. And these distances are called the coordinates of the point P. Is it clear? So the distances 2 and 3 are called the coordinates of the point P. Here its distance from y-axis is 2 units, distance from x-axis is 3 units. So any point P, coordinates are written as 2, 3. This is how we represent the location of a particular point in a coordinate plane. It means that it is 2 units from y-axis. Remember that. The first coordinate gives you the distance from y-axis and the second gives you the distance from the x-axis. Okay, and it has to be always in ordered pair. It means that the distance from the y-axis has to be written first and the distance from the x-axis has to be written second. So if we have a point P, then it always have to be written as x, y, where x is nothing but the x coordinate and y is called the y coordinate. X coordinate is the distance of the point from the y-axis and y coordinate is the distance of the point from the x-axis. Okay, what does ordered pair mean? And there is one more name for x and y coordinate which is called as abscissa and ordinate. So if I say that an abscissa of a point is 5 and ordinate of a point is 6, what are the coordinates of a point or the location of the point? We say P is 5, 6, 5 units from the y-axis and 6 units from the x-axis. Okay, so we understood how do we locate a point in a coordinate plane. Now we say that the coordinate plane basically divides the coordinate axis divides the coordinate plane into 4 quadrants: quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3 and the quadrant 4. This is positive x-axis, this is positive y-axis, here we have negative x-axis and here we have negative y-axis. So any point that lies here, say a point P, it's lying here, the x coordinate, which is distance from y-axis, this much, is positive and y is also positive. Okay, point P. Let us take a point Q in the second quadrant. So this distance is the distance from the y-axis, which is negative, also negative x-axis and positive y-axis. So the coordinates will be negative and positive. We can have a point in the third quadrant. X is also negative, y is also negative. And a point in the fourth quadrant here. X positive and y negative. Okay, so just by looking at the sign of the coordinates, we can tell in which particular quadrant our point is lying. If our point P is say -5, 6, negative x-axis and positive y-axis, this lies in the second quadrant. Okay, let us take a point Q and I say that okay, point Q is 7, 10. Which quadrant will it lie? Let us think. First is positive x-axis and positive y-axis. It lies in the first quadrant. Okay, so just by looking at the sign of the abscissa and ordinate, we can determine in which quadrant our point is lying. I hope this much is clear to everyone. Okay, so let us see some of the points, some of the special points we can say. First is, what are the coordinates of origin? Now, we say that origin is the point where the x-axis and the y-axis meet. So what is the distance of the origin from the y-axis? It's lying on the y-axis itself, correct? So distance from y-axis is 0 of this point O, and its distance from the x-axis, it lies on the x-axis also, so its distance from the x-axis is also 0. That's why the coordinates of origin are 0, 0. If I have a point P here, point P, now let us find out the coordinates of this point. Suppose this much distance is say 2 units. So the distance of point P from the y-axis is, for point P, this point, distance from y-axis is 2 units and distance from x-axis, it is lying on the x-axis itself, so its distance from x-axis is 0. So the coordinates of P is 2, 0. Okay. Similarly, if we have a point, say Q here on the y-axis, its distance from the x-axis is, say, this is negative y, so negative 3. So distance from the x-axis is negative 3 and the distance from the y-axis is 0 because it's lying on the y-axis itself. Okay, so what do we see? That any point that lies on x-axis has a y-coordinate 0. Y-coordinate is distance from x-axis. So the point's coordinate will be x comma 0. It will have some value for x, some value for distance from the y-axis. Okay, if we have any point that lies on y-axis, if it's lying on the y-axis, its distance from the y-axis is 0, has a x coordinate 0. So the coordinates of the point will be 0 comma y. 0 is the distance of that point from the y-axis. Since the point is lying on the y-axis only, its distance will be 0. And the coordinates of origin are 0 comma 0. I hope this much is very clear to everyone. Okay. In our next video, we will see how can we plot different points and we can draw a line through it. So basically we will see how to plot a linear equation or a curve in this two-dimensional coordinate plane. Yeah, thank you.